Hey y'all, welcome back to Zomo. And today, as you can see from the title, I am going to be talking about voting. Voting, girl. Vote, vote, vote in this 2020 election. So the impetus of this video, or the prompt rather, came from an organization called the JAR. I've gone to 2 of their JAR sessions, and the best way that I know how to explain it, it's really just like a collective of people. Honestly, just like people. I think they're artists, but I'm just going to use people in a broader sense. And every time I've gone, we've just explored a piece of art, or we've helped an artist like craft their piece of work, and we talk, and we just be open and vulnerable and talk about some stuff. It's a really good group. I would highly suggest that you go see what they're about and go join one of their JAR sessions. Open the jar, as you will, if you can. But yeah, I'll leave the link to the organization in the description bar. But at the last JAR session that I went to, we helped a young poet with her poem about a nonprofit organization she's a part of. But at the end of that last JAR session, they challenged us to, there was a list of things, but on the list, the thing that I decided to do was 1, make a voting plan and talk about it with somebody, or 2, make a social media post and post about like what inspires you to vote, and also show proof of you voting. I did drop my mail-in ballot in the mailbox last Saturday. I was gonna do the whole shit, take a picture and whatnot, but I'm a Gemini that doesn't charge their phone, so here we are. But anyway, in this video, I'm going to be talking about what inspires me to vote, and also just like some other thoughts that I have about voting in general, and like the political climate, as you were. But yeah, if you end up liking this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, so you can see more content from me. And last but not least, comment and tell me how you feel, what inspires you to vote, and how you feel about all the other stuff I'm talking about. I do have notes. I do take notes. But yeah, so first off on my list is agency. You know what I mean? I love feeling as if I have some control, or like some control in having my hand in the pot. No matter how small my hand may be in this pot, just being able to say, hey, I showed up, I did my part, to move towards this collective action in the world that I want to see. I do think that like voting is the bare minimum that I can do. Rewind that, listen to it again. Voting is the bare minimum that you can do. And I say that because like I feel like when voting, if you don't follow up your vote with like a list of actions that you can like do throughout the year, like donating money, going to protests, or just moving with the positionality of the things that you care about and your values and the things you have morals and ethics around, then I kind of feel like it's an empty vote. If you go vote for climate change, but you do nothing about that in your day-to-day life, you're not voting for climate change, girl. You're voting for somebody else to do the work. Take it or leave it, girl, but that's how I feel about the situation. Don't just vote and expect somebody else to solve the issue. I think the thing about like politics in the world at large is, yeah, you can vote and have somebody be a leader that's gonna be like in charge of making sure that policies and laws get passed and these things happen. But I think, again, like we all have our part in the pot to play. The great pot of the American pie, as you will. And it's like, and if you're not playing your part, don't think just because you're voting, you're helping, girl. You're not. You're forfeiting your power, because we all have collective power. So yeah, so that's, let me see what else I have about my notes, but like agency. Yeah, it's really just about agency and doing what I want to do. And yeah, again, there's so many other things that you can do to support racial and gender equity and environmental and economic justice. But voting is just a really small thing of trying to get the benefit of what you want to see possible. So yeah, and that's the thing, like I work in equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm an EDI consultant, girl. You know what I mean? So like I go into the workplace and dismantle white supremacy 5 days out the week. You know what I mean? So again, that's part of it. I'm not saying that everybody has to adopt adopt a career in the things that they're most passionate about and the change that they want to see in the world. But again, if your voting power isn't supported by you in physical actions, we're not doing enough. Not in my book, man. But secondly, another thing that inspires me to vote is like, girl, I have the privilege. Girl, I don't have all the privilege in the world, but girl, like, I'm educated. I know how to navigate the language and have access to the language of political systems. And I've never really encountered voter suppression. Like, I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I lived like for 3 years in Boston, Massachusetts. That being said, girl, those places are pretty consistently blue. They're very liberal. And again, I've never like really encountered voter suppression. You know what I mean? Every time I've gone to vote, it's taken less than 30 minutes. Remember that thing I said about it being the bare minimum, girl? It's the bare minimum for me. And then I also know how to navigate the language. When the girls start talking about constituents, I know what that means. Some of them goes like, what? What's a constituent? Girl, a constituent is just basically somebody who's like, so you have a politician and the people that are voting for them and the people that they're in charge of are their constituents. But yeah, so I've always had ease of access and understanding the language. I took AP US History and AP Government, you know what I mean? So again, like I was primed to be, and then I'm also in social circles where my friends are talking about politics all the time. So again, I'm like socialized to be a political person. That was part of the reason why I moved to Boston, because I felt like it was a very politically efficient city. Which it is. It's not a perfect politically efficient city, but it is politically efficient. In comparison to Las Vegas, where I feel like people are much more lax, minding their business. I don't want to get too political here. Not to say that like political people don't exist in Vegas, but as a whole, I feel like it's a little more lax when it comes to politics. But now that I brought that up, I do want to address some other things like voter suppression. And I know that a lot of people, they come hard for people who don't vote, but I think they don't take into consideration that voter suppression exists. You know what I mean? Voter suppression exists. Like there are political powers and white supremacists who are doing everything in their power to stop people of color from voting, to sway the balance of the scales, as it were. And then also, I'm not gonna blame anybody who's like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna blame anybody who's not gonna go to the polls because they have to figure out how to eat a meal, you know what I mean? Where they're gonna sleep, taking care of their bodily or mental health, or just trying to combat and avoid and escape, you know what I mean, our abusive law enforcement. So yeah, you know what I mean? If you don't want to have a conversation about all the ways that people are being hurt by the system, the political system as it were, and ways that it is stopping them from voting, then you're not really to talk about all the reasons in totality with all of the context of the many reasons why people vote or why they wouldn't be voting. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to talk about, something I wanted to bring up, because I do think it's like anti-Black Obama's about when people come to Black people, it's like, oh, we're losing because of you. No, girl, we're not losing because of Black people. And again, why is it Black people's responsibility to save the country? You know what I mean? What was it? 54% of white women voted for Trump in 2016. Talk to them. Because you know what they have? They also have the white privilege. Talk to them. Talk to them. But yeah, I'm gonna move on to my next point. And last but certainly not least, I come from a long line of ancestors who fought for my right to vote and also for my livelihood. You know what I mean? Like Black people fought to be treated as equals for well over 100 years. You know, girl, over 100 years. I'm only 26. That's almost 4 times my age. And for me to just be like, oh, I don't want to vote seems disrespectful. The girls were fighting for my ability to vote longer than I've been alive. And for some of the girls that forfeit, when you do have access and privilege, You know what I mean? When it's easy for some of the girls to go vote and you don't vote because like, I'm not a political person. I don't know, girl. That just seems lazy, disrespectful, and childish in my book. But yes, a lot of people I know, like my grandparents during the Great Migration, they moved from the South to the West Coast just so, like, my grandpa told me that he moved because if he did not move, he would have ended up in jail or killed by white people. Just trying to, like, you know what I'm saying, take care of his livelihood. You know what I mean? And then everything that my ancestors did, I just can't take that for granted. So I'm gonna do everything that they wanted me to do, everything that they fought for, especially if it's gonna take no more than 30 minutes, not including research time. But still, the trip down to the middle school up the street is real simple, girl. It's real simple, girl. But yeah, those are the 3 reasons. I mean, I can say other things like policies, but you know what, like, I'm not always like incited by the policy. Sometimes it's just like the lesser of 2 evils. And I hate saying that because it's trash, but it's like, again, girl, it's the bare minimum I can do. I move with the positionality, you know what I mean? I work in a different way. So like me voting is just like quarters in my piggy bank when I'm putting like $20 and $50 and $100 bills in my piggy bank all year. You know what I mean? We are not the same. But yeah, that's about it for me. Let me know why y'all like to vote or what inspires you to vote. And if you don't like to vote, let me know that as well, because I really want to have an open discourse about why people don't vote. Did I not bring up something? You know what I'm saying? Is there something that I'm missing? Something else about voting. I was playing a character called El Fayumi, and he was from Egypt. And then during that time period, I was doing a lot of research about like politics in the Middle East, in that part of the world. And there was this actor, I forget his name, I should know his name, but he had this interview and he was talking and he was criticizing democracy. Not that we have a democracy that's one person, one vote. We have a democratic republic, girl, where we vote for people to represent us and they make decisions on laws and stuff like that. But anyway, he was saying one of the critiques of democracy is that it requires that in order for it to be effective, it requires that everybody have a base level of education. And he's like, that's just not realistic. Which is true. It isn't realistic, especially not under capitalism, you know what I mean? Which requires an imbalance, which requires the exploitation of certain communities of color, you know what I mean? So like, I'm not sure how legitimate our democratic process is ever going to be, knowing, one, that the education system is never going to be balanced and equitable, and 2, there is also like a fierce amount of like misinformation being published, you know what I mean, that people are taking at face value as the truth and fact, you know what I'm saying? Fake alternative news, as you will. And when you have those two things at play, it cripples the effectiveness of your democracy. But girl, I'm about to get real deep. We're almost at 15 minutes. You know, I can go on about this forever. I really could. But I'm not going to. So yeah, again, let me know what inspires you to vote. And if you don't vote, let me know why you're not voting as well. Put that down in the comments. Thank y'all for tuning in. I would take this time to tell you to go vote, but I don't want everybody voting. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you're gonna go vote for somebody who's interested in investing in the harm and oppression of people of color or queer or trans people, don't vote. Burn your ballot and take a nap. Bye.